Hebrew Matthew has, Ashrei rodfei shalom, shebnei Elohim yikareu. Blessed are the pursuers of peace, for they will be called B'nai Elohim, the sons of God.
My goodness. That sounds like a little bit of a difference.
No, I don't know that it's that big of a difference. In other words, in Greek, you say to make peace. In Hebrew, you say to pursue peace. Delitzsch, who we know translated from the Greek into the Hebrew, he translates Ashrei rodfei shalom, verbatim, the same so far. Blessed are those who pursue peace. Ki b'nei Elohim yikarei lehem, for it shall be called to them the sons of Elohim. So he has the tenses a little bit different, or the passive and the active voice. But basically, it's almost identical. Both, let's say if Matthew represents accurately what Yeshua said, then he got that phrase from Psalm 34:15, which says, "Bakesh shalom v'rodfehu," seek peace and pursue it.
Amen.
And Delitzsch definitely got that phrase from Psalm 34:15. In other words, he saw the phrase "Eireno poio," those who make peace, and he said, "Oh, Eireno poio is in Hebrew to pursue peace." And in other words, it's a Hebrew idiom that he's translating back out of the Greek. And if we look, let's see at Psalm 34:15, and we see. Bakesh shalom v'rodfehu, seek peace and chase after it. And let's see what we have in the Greek. I didn't even look this up beforehand. Yes, so it doesn't have that exact, it's interesting, it doesn't have and make peace. So we have to ask, how did he end up with this phrase? He didn't end up with it based on the Greek. He said, what is a Hebrew idiom for making peace? Now, is there a difference between pursuing peace and making peace?
I believe there is. And I'll tell you something, for me, this was a change, because when I sought to pursue peace, the pressure kind of went down a little bit. I don't always feel like, I'll be completely honest, Nehemia, I don't always feel like being a peacemaker. Pursuing peace seems to be something that I'm pointing towards, I'm trying to do, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's like lies with me. Peacemaker feels like it's just you. That's how it feels to me.
And you could interpret it that. In other words, someone who pursues peace, if the other side doesn't reciprocate, okay, I tried.
Exactly.
Whereas if based on the Greek, you could say, and I don't know that it has to be read this way, but it sounds, I guess, in the Greek, that you only get credit if you actually make the peace.
Exactly.
And boy, how can we talk about this without talking about the peace process in Israel? There was a man named Yossi Beilin, and he was this professor, brilliant professor from a university in Israel, and he came up with the doctrine of the peace process. And he said something like this, and this ties in, it's related. He said something like this: look, we made peace with Egypt. We know what the Arabs need to make peace. Let's cut through all the games, let's cut through all the negotiations, and go just to the final stage, which is what we know they're going to eventually agree to. And one of those things was there has to be an Arab capital in Jerusalem, and a whole bunch of other things. I won't go into the detail. And people liken this to, and I'll try to use sensitive language here, right? Imagine if you back when in your single days, you met this woman, and you said to the woman, look, I know in the end we're going to be married. So let's cut to the chase, and we don't need dinner. We don't need to go on dates. Let's just get married right now, and tonight we will consummate. Well, she'd probably slap you. And she should slap you. Because there is a process that you need to go through. You need to pursue peace in order to make peace. And,
that's big.
And Bailenism said, this philosophy of Yossi Beilin said, oh no, let's just make peace now. We know how this is going to end. Let's make peace. And it was a disaster. It brought death of tens of thousands of Jews and tens of thousands of Arabs, especially Muslims. And why did it bring death? Because that's not how things work. There's a dynamic you have to work through.
Now here's the controversy, here's the rub before we get to the second part of the verse. So what does pursuing peace look like for a person who wants to follow?
Okay, so first of all, you have to want peace. Now the peacemaker also wants peace, but he's not willing to go through the hard work of making peace, and he's not willing to accept no. Sometimes the answer is no, I don't want peace. Look, this appears in the Torah.
Talk to me.
This appears in the Torah, it's in Deuteronomy, and it talks about when you go out to war against a nation,
Yes.
It's ki tetzei lemilchama, if I'm not mistaken. And when you go out to war, here, it's Deuteronomy 20, verse 10. When you approach a city to wage war against it, and you call out to it, shalom, peace.
Peace.
It shall come to pass, if they answer you peace, and they open up the gates to you, and all the people are in it, shall be, and this is when it's in the land of Israel, shall be tributaries to you, and they shall serve you, right? So there's an opportunity for peace, and they can respond with peace. Now here it's when it's in the land of Israel. It's not some far off land. It's the land that God has given you. If they want to live with you in peace and be subject to your government, they can live in peace. If they refuse to live as subjects of, in this case, the only democratic state in the Middle East, and they want to destroy you, then you can't make peace with them. The answer sometimes is no. I've seen this in all kinds of things in my life. I've seen this with governments, with geopolitical situations. I've seen this with friendships, and I've seen this, and it's painful. And I've seen this with relationships. Sometimes the answer is no. And pursuing peace is okay, is a good thing. Trying to force peace when the other side doesn't want to have peace, you can't do it.
Wow.
It leads to death and destruction on both sides.
You read that whole verse? Did you read that whole verse?
Which one?
The one on peace.
Yeah, I mean, we can read the whole passage. There's more to it, but yeah.
Okay. Give us the passage. I'm just saying what the passage is.
And it says, and it shall come to pass if they don't make peace with you, and they make war with you, you shall be an enemy against them, and Yehovah will give them into your hand, and you will smite all of their males with the sword, etc. All right, I mean, we can go into it and read about it, but
tell us where that is.
And it says in verse 15, thus shall you do with all actually, this is the cities that are far away from you, that are not from the cities of these nations. It's in Deuteronomy 20, verse...
that's what I need.
Verse 10.
Excellent.
Okay, so if you're dealing with a nation who doesn't want to have peace, then you can't make peace. Now, in this case, we weren't trying to rule over them. We said, you guys, look, that's our land, the West Bank and Gaza. Hebron is the heartland of the people of Israel. It's where Abraham lived. It's where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are buried. Right? My ancestors are buried there. You want to rule over their graves because you guys came and took that from us. We're willing to stipulate to that if you make peace with us. And they wouldn't do it. They refused to do it. This culminated in the year 2000 in what was called the Camp David Accords, the second Camp David Accords. Ehud Barak, who was the Israeli prime minister, went to this place, Camp David in the United States, and met with Yasser Arafat. And he was willing to give them every inch of the West Bank and Gaza, with the exception of certain population centers in the West Bank. He said, we'll give you other territory in place of that, because we're already 50,000, 100,000 people living there. We can't afford to move those people.
Yeah. Are you thinking about like a place of Ma'ale Adumim?
Ma'ale Adumim.
Yes.
Ma'ale Adumim and Ariel were the two things that held
You know
it
where
up.
I got my Torah scroll, right? Ma'ale Adumim.
You got it in Ma'ale Adumim. For the Torah shall go forth out of Jerusalem, and in this case, via Ma'ale Adumim.
Amen.
So he said, we'll give you, we'll compensate you for that 4% of the land. 4% of the land. Kind of like, we had this thing with Mexico, the Gadsden Purchase, right? Like, we're going to make a deal. Let's make a deal. And we'll give you land in the Negev in place of that. And so you'll have a larger area around Gaza. And the prime minister of Malaysia asked, it was Malaysia or Indonesia, I don't remember. He asked Arafat later, why did you turn down that deal? You'll never get such a good deal again. He said, it may take us 100 years, but we're going to drive every last Jew into the sea. We're going to wipe them off the face of the earth. And if I make peace now, later generations of Palestinians who are living in peace with the Jews will never forgive me for not wiping them out, even if it takes 100 years. So you can pursue peace, but if the other side doesn't want peace, you can't make it.